So the land is a living library, temples, sacred sites. Even in Hinduism, they consider mountains master teachers. So when you go and you sing to the mountains, you pay homage. You offer your voice as part of something greater than yourself. There's no agenda. There's just the empowerment of the elementals, the empowerment of the spirit of place. You can't help but be blessed. It's said that the fastest way for your dreams to come true or to help someone else's dreams to come true. So imagine helping the earth have her dreams come true, recognizing that she is this divine sentient being of which we are all a part. Now I have the tremendous honor of being with others in sacred circle, singing to the land, singing to God, singing the love in our hearts, remembering who we are as stewards of this earth, as stewards of each other, and doing my best to bring that and to bring greater love to the world.
This depth of awareness, this connection to the earth and to all of life and this unity consciousness, this is not hyperbole. It's actually what is calling me. And I'm like, yes. Yes, and I believe there are more of us that are finding each other that want to stand in this light and then want to radiate this light from an embodied place. We're meeting our shadows. We're aware of how dark it is. We're not bypassing that. We're doing our own work. And yet we also know that there's a reason why we're here on this planet at this time. Well, hey there, and welcome back to Fire and Soul, the space to deepen into your divine alignment and further activate your inner awakening. And I'm so happy that you're here. This is a conversation that I can't say has been a long time coming, Reya, because we haven't known each other that long. But when we dropped in upon meeting, it was like this ancient soul sisterhood. And so I am thrilled to share part of your heart and your energy and your mission with the listeners and watchers, viewers of Fire and Soul. So welcome, Reya Manna.
Oh, Michelle, thank you so much for having me. And yes, it's been beautiful and magical connecting with you.
It's wild. I thought we would start there, actually. There's so many points of divine dots and synchronization, and then we'll weave into your backstory, which is it just literally had me in tears. Just, oh, love your life. It's pretty magical from where I sit. And then we'll weave into the heart of this conversation, which is really around what it means to be a songkeeper and an earth song guide and all the various different ways in which we're going to open this conversation up today that I know is so needed. And then ways in which to connect with you through the Shift Network and a brand new program that you're launching called The Journey of the Songkeeper. And this is an extremely exciting offering. So to start, we just had your partner, Michael Joseph, on the show a few weeks back from the Sacred Honor Educational Fellowship, along with Phil Maderi. And if y'all are watching, hello. And you guys were on a pretty big podcast tour out here as a whole team. And so I hosted, my friend Betsy and I co-hosted a gathering for Sacred Honor and just kind of like a barbecue and fire pit and sing along. And there you were. And you walked in, and I'll let you share what that was like for you, because it was like, hello, Reya. Hello, Michelle. And then suddenly we were just, in our own little world.
Oh, yes. It was meeting you, and the whole experience in Austin was definitely a highlight, like this high note, such a kind of peak experience moment where it felt like this homecoming into these welcoming arms of this community, and even deeper, like the heart of the mother that I didn't know was there. And when we started talking, it was just like an instantaneous recognition. And I was like, wow, you have such an ability to like make people feel so comfortable and just bring people in. And you were just like, no, like that's like, I'm feeling the same thing. And, speaking about the earth and that we both were living in the Los Angeles area and connecting with the Topanga Mountains and being able to drop in so deeply was such medicine for my spirit. And I said when we got back, I said, I can't believe I've met so many beautiful, amazing women like that I feel such a powerful alignment with. And I have been, in this place of doing my work of service in the world and knowing that there are more allies out there. And it felt like this, like, really confirmational moment on my life path, meeting you of like, yeah, here are some of your deep, deep sisters.
I felt exactly the same. And there was just so many like wild synchronicities in addition to us realizing that we were probably walking the same trails in Topanga, enjoying the same lands, eating at the same restaurants, going to the same places, and leaving about the same time. And both of us having this really deep, clear knowing that the contract was complete with Los Angeles. And I think I recall you even saying it's not that you even wanted to, it's that it was done and there was no stain. Is that, am I correct in that?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
very much so. I started to feel in May of 2023 that there was a change coming,
Mhm.
some big shift, and I just needed to make myself available for it. And, as we'll get into, a big part of my work is singing to the earth and connecting with the earth and doing that every day for the 5 years that I lived in Topanga and then the 10 years that I lived in LA. The land was very clear that, like, oh, this isn't a stable place anymore. And then I started to get the message, kind of, this portal is closing. The energy and the environment that had been here is no longer. And then it was just kind of a sweeping that happened in February of 2024. And then it was by the summer of 2024 that I was on the road, kind of like available to what's next.
Ah, very, very similar journeys. And then just to kind of weave in here a little more, and then I cannot wait to get more of your backstory and how you came to even commune with the land in the ways that you do and now teach so many others. But even some other things that we were chatting about, like, for example, your best friend born on my birthday, June 13. You were the first and only woman that had ever said out loud something that I've shared here on the podcast, and that I had a conversation with Ashley Turner, a psychotherapist who teaches on menopause, that in your perimenopause years that you are also being faced with some of the shadows and wounds of your adolescent years, and you were like, one by one they're showing up to be healed. And you said it before I said it, and I was like, no one has said that. And it was this profound connection because it's been this radical, revealing, hard, confronting, humbling, healing threshold that I have been walking for the last year. And you were like, me too. So I don't know if you remember anything about that moment, but it
Yes.
was really big for me.
Yes. Yeah. And just the fact that we could drop into that space like so quickly and immediately. I think what I remember of that conversation is speaking about some of the stronger, I don't know, planetary alignments isn't the best word, but like the summer solstice, the fall equinox, the winter solstice. I was sharing with you that I felt like I was dropped into my deepest childhood wounding. And, these were stories that I remembered. I knew that they were having an impact on me, but yet in those moments, I was dropped into the visceral experience.
Yes.
And then when we started speaking about that, and you're like, yeah, me too. And sometimes on this journey, especially when we're dealing with our own shadow and our own personal pain, it's such a solo journey. So when we can share and have reflected back, oh my gosh, I was going through that too. I feel like part of what's happening now planetarily is these wounds of the collective, these wounds of our ancestry are being purged. And
Mm,
how are they purged? But yet they're purged through us,
through
through
us.
our willingness to be part of this greater movement of consciousness.
Yeah, beautifully said. And that was the other thing that you also really validated in me, something that I've been sharing about also here on the show. And I even talked about it briefly last week about waking down into the body. And you introduced me to this. So it's so beautiful, the timing. And I had started what I thought would be a solo series way back in May called Embodied Ascension, because most people, as we know, the masses are basically, here up, neck up, love and light, and forgetting about this beautiful vessel that's carrying our soul's destiny, and gives us the ability to do what we are meant to do, and to serve in the ways that we are meant to serve. And so introducing me to books like Waking Down, and is the what's the full title?
Waking Down in Mutuality.
Mm.
It's an organization that was started by Samuel Bonder about 30 years ago, and it's based on this premise that when someone has awakened, that awakening is transmitted and kind of can be caught like a cold. So the idea is if you gaze in someone's eyes who's awakened, then it activates the awakening principles in you. So
Mm.
I would go to these eye gazing meditations, and there's groups all over that would do these eye gazing meditations, and deeply in this recognition that it's not a waking up that we're doing, it's a
Mm-mm.
waking down. And I think I shared with you this story I had heard about the evolutionary spiral of human consciousness, and in there it says that the Buddha was only half enlightened, because 5,000 years ago, what was available to humanity was touching and reaching up to the sublime.
Mm.
And then in the past 5,000 years, the movement of that energy is now coming down into the embodiment of that divinity, the embodiment of the beauty of creation.
Yeah. So this is another reason why I fell in love with Rhea right away, because you are such an oracle. It's so beautiful. And then just this last little weaving for the moment, because I really want to get into your backstory and you being 5 years old and waking up to just so much beauty is me sharing about my tree energy medicine moments and a particular tree that is an ancient oak on my favorite trail in Topanga. And this is my home tree. And the reference is, yes, to my one of my all-time favorite films, Avatar. And this I couldn't explain it, and even thinking about it right now I feel the energy, and I could get really emotional. I would turn the corner every single time I did that hike. Really was more of a trail, so beautiful, and I would run to the tree, or I would feel it like almost like wanting, it was and hugging the tree. And I would always take videos and put in my stories, and people were like, "You are so crazy, a tree hugger." And I was like, I can't explain it. And that was the first connection I'd ever had to a tree like that, and it's the only connection to a tree like that I know is my home tree, that has also visited me not only in dreams but also in a couple of different sacred plant medicine journeys. And so it's a big deal. And two other pine trees, as I was living with my mom in what I call my spiritual rehab, when I left my place in Santa Monica, when I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, a psychotic break. In some ways, it was the beginning of the awakening, when I was just waking up to the world and really thought CNN was the news to be trusted. And I learned it all so fast that it was just a bit much for me. So my mom just said, "Come stay with me for a week." And I stayed for 10 and a half months. And there were months and months and months where all I could do was just go sit in a park nearby her house, and these glorious, tall pine trees. There were dozens of them, but two presented as archangels, Michael and Archangel Metatron. And they assured me through their steady, grounded presence, "You don't have to rush. Take your time. Let the earth hold you. Marvel at the butterflies. Delight in the squirrels. And when it's time, you will like move in the world again." And I can't even describe the comfort that gave me, because it was about 9 months where I was like, will I ever create again? Will I ever have drive again? Will I ever feel right about charging money again? And anyway, so the trees were so profound. And then here you were coming along and telling me about my next favorite book, which I'm going to ask you for the title, because I was like, wait, what? And you're like, yes, this is my love language. It was so awesome.
Oh, Michelle, thank you for bringing that back and feeling, you have felt so many chills while you were speaking. And,
Mm.
I think the thing for people really to recognize is that it's not about what the form is that shows up in front of you, but it's about the experience that it has
Mhm.
upon you, the
Mm.
mark that it makes on your heart. And we often feel that with chills, or we feel moved to tears, and, not to discount those moments, because I really believe that that's spirit speaking through. And so when you shared that story with me, and I was just like, oh yeah, oaks, they're the king of the trees. And there's this book, The Initiatic Trees of the Light. That's what it is. The Initiatic Trees of the Light. And it was written by this woman, Terrace Unsold. And she is a shamanic tree whisperer. And so, that book came to me along my path after actually I went to South Africa and had a really profound experience with some of the magnificent trees down there. Flew from South Africa over the North Pole, landed in the Bay, and then went up to sing in a music festival somewhere north of Sebastopol in the forest. And then I think I spent another 3 weeks in the forest and just with the trees, like, speaking to me, feeling myself grounding in with the roots and this network of communication. And, right now it's that we are in this process of awakening, this process of having the veil fall from our eyes, the veil of any false overlay that's been placed upon the natural world. And we are surrounded by allies in that, whether it's the trees or whether it's the birds or the sun or the wind or the ocean. We all have something in nature that brings us back to ourselves. And I love how you shared that the trees were just like, just don't worry, like just rest in, just, when the time is right, you'll know. Because the message that I always get from the trees is that everything is okay.
Yeah.
The trees are like, we've been here for a really long time. We watch the seasons come and go. We watch the cycles, and you're just in a cycle, and truly everything is okay.
Yeah, it's so true, teaching us to completely trust and surrender. It was really beautiful to share that with you because A, I hadn't shared it in quite a while. And B, you took it in the same way you're sharing now, which is like, oh yeah, that's real. That's real. And here's more of that. And let me add to it and me too in my own ways. And it was just for me, just to kind of go back to where we started in the blessing of connecting with you and you feeling that alignment. And when you got back and talking to Michael, like your partner, of like, there was so much alignment there, not just with me, but a lot of people that you met, and a lot were a part of a community that I'm a part of. We're all connected. And I just feel the same way. Like I feel like a little girl, grateful, joyous, delighted, like awe and wonder over who's coming into my life. And it feels like the most beautiful, exciting mirror, and because, yeah, the purity, and it's been hard. And people listening to the show know it's, the purification fires, the alchemy, the transmutation, the facing my own stuff, working with it. Ooh, and it's so worth it.
And thank you for saying that. It's so worth it. And, someone who's listening now needs to be reminded of that. And one of those moments when we're brought to our knees. And, as you're speaking, it's reminding me of this poem by Khalil Gibran on love. I think it's called On Love. And it basically says something to the effect of, if love beckons you, follow him, though his ways may be sharp and steep. And as he may embrace you, he also shall wound you. And he'll take you into love's threshing floor and strip you bare. But if you run from love's threshing floor, you will laugh, but not all of life's laughter, and you will cry, but not all of life's tears. And the purpose is to make you into the sweetest bread for God's feast, so that you can be food for the divine. So, it speaks to these times that we're in, and also this greater recognition that we're here not just for this limited human life, that, we go to work and we have a house and it's just on the physical material plane, that we are beings vast and rich, just like the earth herself, with our own sacred waterways and our own, forests and valleys and temples. And when we can really embrace and even have somebody tell us that life is a journey of the mystery school, and that we are a magnificent work of art, a magnificent temple of the divine, and there's so much more for us in our unfolding and our joy and our fulfillment. It's like it flips a switch to know that there's something greater than just the reality that's been represented to us.
Ah, totally. Well said. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. That On Love poem, all of what was some of the deepest reckoning in my own life for this year, because it's been every year for many years, is this long dark night of the soul, which I'm here for. I remember early May, there was this sort of channel of angels by the name of Ann Tucker. She had been on the show, and then she started talking about this sort of particle energy that was coming through. And there was like this few week period where, be really clear on one thing you want to manifest, but it can't be a tangible sort of like, material world thing. So I was like, I'm going to open my heart for love. So what was I shown? All the ways in which my heart was blocked. It was just like the poem. And so it's just, and then now I just feel so much more opened and strengthened, and I feel more resilient, and things feel just even that much more pure. And there's always more, there will always be more, but that fully resonates as you share about the poem. Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Not Rumi, Kahil Gibran. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my friend, we have to go back to when you were 5. I don't exactly have anywhere where I want you to take us with like a backstory, but I love what you shared with me, and you may or may not remember that, but anything that would kind of bridge from your 5-year-old moment to where you are today, and how you serve and how you show up and lead and guide as a genuine steward of the earth. Yeah, I'd love to know anything you want to share.
Thank you for that. And when I just kind of want to preface that with this little story that I heard Steve Jobs give a commencement address. And he shared some stories of his life. And he said, looking forward, life doesn't make sense. But looking back, you can connect the dots and you can understand why things happened. And, going through my life journey, as I'm sure for all of us, it doesn't always make sense. And so at 5 years old, I was introduced to Jesus and asked if I wanted to receive Jesus into my heart. And I did wholeheartedly. And I would offer Jesus my food and my water, and I would sing to Jesus, and I would cry. And it was right after my parents had gotten divorced. And so I was at my dad's and my mom's every other weekend. The effect of that was that when I was with my dad, that's where I learned about Jesus. And we would go to these charismatic Christian churches, gospel churches. Sometimes my stepmother and I would drive around looking for the most wild, charismatic church we could find just to enjoy the music. But what happened for me as a result of that is I felt the aliveness of spirit. I learned what that felt like. And I wasn't indoctrinated because I wasn't in one place long enough to go through the rhythm of needing to learn the messages and repeat them back. And that experience of the aliveness of God has stayed with me my whole life and guided me forward. And I think something else that we were talking about was, that moment was very important for me and has guided so much of my life path, but yet I never really connected just like how significant it was. And maybe a few years ago, I was in a yoga class. It was like a 3-hour hip flexor class. And, we know that your emotions are stored in your hips. So I'm laying there like, struggling with my hips. And then I was going into my childhood pain. And I started looking at moments that I had a real disappointment, something that I wished had never happened. And as I'm looking and feeling all that energy, I hear spirit say, well, then what happened? What happened after that? And so it was like I was in the moment when my dad left and feeling like, where I was standing, remembering the whole picture and the pain of that. And then in that moment in the hip flexor class, and Spirit's like, well, what happened next? And I was like, next? Like, I didn't even know anything happened next. And I was like thinking about it. I was like, oh, then I found Jesus. And then I started to trace other moments in my life where something really challenging had happened, something that I wished never happened. And then when I looked at what came after, it was a deepening in my relationship with God in some way or another, just reminding me that there's more to life than has been represented, and that there's this love beyond anything that we can imagine that's extending through to remind us who we are, but also inviting us into this greater movement. There's a quote by Saint Teresa of Avila, and she says, Christ has no body on earth but yours, no
Mm.
hands on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which the divine sees compassion unto the world.
Mm.
And like hearing that just kind of summarize what my life has shown me is that, with spirit, whatever you want to call it, Christ, Jesus, God, whatever that aliveness is that speaks to your heart, it comes through to remind us who we are, but then to ask us to be part of this mission of uplifting others.
Mm.
A teacher of mine once said, "What are your hands for?" Your hands are to wipe the tears of those who are crying and to lift someone up who's suffering.
Mm. Mm. So beautiful. Thank you for that. Wow. I'm just taking all of that in, and I'm actually experiencing the aliveness of this energy coming through you as you're sharing. So I was really just enjoying the receiving of that. And, you know, it was another point of our connection because I remember thinking to myself, just the way mine does, like, well, what does Jesus mean for you? And is it Christian? And is it doctrine? And I don't know why I feel called to just kind of put this in here right now. And you're like, no, I didn't know anything about that. And it still isn't where you're in resonation. And then I remember sharing about, well, Jesus started Christ energy, Christ consciousness in the form of, yes, a master, beautiful teacher is the way that I know it, started to show up on my path in 2023, first through a book called Resurrecting Jesus by Adyashanti that I've definitely shared here many times. And I've listened to now 3 times. But the next thing I know, Jesus shows up in a breathwork session that was really intense and it was 3 hours long. And I was assured that this is real, this is available, this is right here, right now. And there was a power in the peaceful presence and aliveness. And then all of a sudden, I'm ordering an 8x10 image of Jesus to be on the center of my sacred personal altar. So one night I'm doing breath work and in my prayers, and I just say to the picture, "Who are you to me?" And I got a very clear response, and it was, "I'm your compadre. I'm your teacher. I'm your friend. And you can vet through me. I will always be your ally." And so I work with the numbers 222 or 2222. I love your tears. It's so, yeah, it's so special. It's never not. And so now I know that if I see 222, and it's not every time, but it's partnership for me, and it's partnership in the unseen realm. It's partnership with Jesus. And so if there's anything that I'm considering or working on or moving through, I can take it to the heart of Jesus. And oftentimes I'll get clarity so fast, or sometimes I'm like, it's like, nope, that's for me. I got to keep working through that, and but it's been also my own relationship much later in life. But I was just so touched that that was your experience so young. Yeah.
Thank you. And as you can see, I was very moved by your story,
Mhm.
feeling the energy of it. And it was also reminding me so early on in my life was deeply in charismatic Christian churches. And then I was baptized Pentecostal when I was 18 in a full water immersion, all Black Pentecostal church. It was one of those moments, who wants to be baptized? And I was like, me, I want to be baptized. And just jumped in with all my clothes on. And then I went on to study different esoteric and mystical traditions and comparative religions. I got my Master of Divinity, my Master of Social Work, and I wanted to understand and feel. So that sense of aliveness that I felt when I was 5 years old and that continued on in my life, that would turn on for me in different places. It would turn on for me at a Native American ceremony. It would turn on for me in a home of a Hare Krishna couple. It was nowhere to be found in a Presbyterian church. I could feel where the Spirit of God was present. And I found this poem later. It's a Sufi poem, and it said, blessed is the place where the people praise the Lord.
Mm.
Blessed is the home, blessed is the forest, blessed is the town. And so there's something there that, and also speaks to holy sites, to temples and sacred places where there has been praise, where there's been this stewardship of the land and this honoring of the holiness of the ground beneath our feet. In that honoring, it brings to life, that which is always there.
Mm.
And so, in that process, I studied a lot of different traditions and was very open-minded in my, and, didn't want to make anyone feel excluded. And in my early teens, or I guess it was my later teens, I really lived with that question about, like, if you don't believe in Jesus, are you going to hell? I
Right.
mean, it's a big question. So I lived into a lot of these questions. And then during COVID, one night and so part of the way I get songs is they're sung to me in my dreams oftentimes.
Mm.
And this one night I had the song sung and I woke up and I sang it into a voice memo. That's how I capture them. And then in the morning I listened back and I was like, I know that song. That's not a new song. And so I had just heard, like, great is thy faithfulness. And then I had the melody. And so I looked it up and I found it. And it's, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, thy mercies I see. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. And it was like this moment, like, what? Like, I thought I had to be faithful to God, but God's faithful to me.
Mm.
And so I ended up going on a road trip out to Eastern Arizona. It took like 13 hours. And I listened to that song like nearly the whole time, just
Mm.
crying and feeling this communion. And it began this period of time where many more of these songs were sung through my dreams. And I would meet people who just had like a coming home to Christ. And kind of the message that I've been getting is that, this is the time for the aliveness of Christ to be felt and expressed through us. And, we can have all these hopes and dreams and desires for something greater. And yet it's, for me, I know it's always been about this presence of Christ reaching through,
Mm.
opening my heart, touching the hearts of others. And it's like such a full circle moment. And so I'll just stop it there. It's not something that I've brought through in quite that way.
Oh, it's beautiful though. Totally tracking. And yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and really bringing presence to that aliveness and how it will show up in so many different ways and forms, and what's appropriate for our own evolutionary path.
Mm.
So that's how it sounded to me, is that discovery and the insight coming through at a time when, honestly, so needed. When the world was going into lockdown, you were being invited into infinite expansion, something way beyond a paradigm in which you had thought was possible or the way it was, and that's what awakening is.
And sometimes you follow these paths of synchronicities and you follow your heart and you're like, okay, I'm going with it. This feels right. I'm going to do it. And even when I'm from the East Coast, and 10 years ago or 11 years ago now, I came to California, and I remember landing in California, staying at a friend's house, pulling a book off the shelf, and it was filled with Christ prayers.
Mm.
And it was like this moment of, you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know what you were following here, but it's truly all about this mission of Christ, which is to set the people free.
Mm. Mm.
Set the people free so that we can be in our own divine nature, so that we can be restored to the unity of the Holy Spirit. And in Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, they talk about the fall of man. It's said that Adam, the first man, was Adam Kadmon, who represented the unity of all of humanity. And at the fall of man, it was like we were a strand of pearls that had been broken and cast across the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so the greater mission is to restore us back to that unity. So when we talk about the Christ, that's what it is. It's coming back to this pattern of redemption that lives within our heart, this remembrance that we are divine beings. We're not beholden to the physical world, but we're beholden to the divine world. And when we really step into that, have restored to us the power of the word. They say that Christ is the word. Christ was the living word. The word is the power to speak reality into creation once more. And when we come back into this field of unity and we unite with one heart, we unite in one prayer, with one voice, we can speak reality into creation. We can literally be that wild card in the play of all this chaos, that we can speak heaven on earth and have it be so.
Yes, as our lived reality, not some far off destination that has to be earned. It's right here and right now.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was another point in which we totally connected on. It was like, it's right here. And then, like 10 minutes later, and right here. Yeah. Like two little girls. Um, yeah, so much goodness there. What brought you to listening to the land? You had mentioned two pivotal moments where your inner listening really deepened, and maybe we'll share that story and then how it connects to what even learning to commune with the land means for those who are brand new to it and or who might have a curiosity around why does that actually sound really good to me right now?
Thank you for
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Well, I think it was in 2013. A friend of mine said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to sun gaze every morning. And I was like, sun gaze? Like, doesn't that involve like getting up at dawn? And I'm not really such a getting up at dawn kind of person. And she's like, yeah. I said, well, maybe I'll do it for 6 weeks. My birthday's coming up. It feels like a good time to do it. So I would wake up before dawn and I would go and stand outside with my bare feet on the earth. And I would gaze at the sun rising just over the horizon, drink the energy into my body, and then I would send blessings to the earth. And I would send blessings through these different initiation rites I had learned from the Karo tradition, these Munai key rites, which connect you with the healers, the day keepers, the earth keepers, those benevolent beings that tend to the continuation of life on earth.
Mm.
So I would send blessings through those lines, and then I would go on with my day. And after about 10 days of that, I started to hear the earth speaking back.
Mm.
I would hear that the wisdom from all time is contained in the energetic field of the earth and in our energetic field. And we can open the conversation by sending blessings, by sending offerings. And I was getting such profound insights, I started to write them down. And then years later, I published a book called The Awakening World, The Return of the Divine Feminine, which was the messages I received over the course of praying for the earth.
Mm.
And before that, I didn't know that the earth could talk. I didn't know that. I mean, I understood that there's this world beyond the world that we see, but it was this great unveiling. And also, we spoke about kind of a homecoming before, but this recognition that you are not alone, that you are part of this field of responsiveness that has always loved you and that is always loving you and is always in communication, but we're not available to the communication because the signs, they don't speak English. When we're communing with the land, they're not like, dropping a letter that you're getting in your email inbox. It's beginning to develop that listening.
Mm.
And, we have representations of like the yin and the yang. The yang is the masculine, the power, the action. The yin is the receptive nature, the listening. And so, also we hear that this is the time of the feminine, the time of the rise of the women. And for me, what I believe that to be is this opening to our deeper listening, to our intuition, that space of receptivity. In many spiritual traditions, it's said that first you must become nothing before you can become everything.
Mm.
And so it's recognizing this place of discernment within us, this self-mastery that guides us to acting not of our ego, acting not of our agenda, but allowing that the goodness of life itself to flow through us.
Mm.
So I'll just pause there. So that was like the first, like, oh my gosh, there's a lot more going on here than, than I had thought.
Than I ever knew. Okay, so can you give us a real life example of what sending an offering down to the earth would mean as a blessing in the midst of sun gazing, whether people try sun gazing or they don't? But what is an example of one without having like a traditional passage that you were familiar with? What's a good place to
You can
begin?
just, it's so easy. I mean, you can go outside and you can put your hands on the earth and you can send love from your heart. I mean,
Mhm,
I always like to rub my hands together.
mhm,
Our hands are connected to our heart. Our heart is a seat of love and compassion. The hands are that love into action.
mhm,
So we can wield our hands like magic wands.
mhm,
And so I like to activate those energy centers and then just send blessings and all the way down to the heart of our Mother Earth and seeing
mhm,
that like a crystalline
mhm,
star heart.
mhm,
And, you know, I went through in my deeply like learning about Christianity phase, my love of Jesus for a period of time, I was like, oh, well, this is paganism and that's bad and you shouldn't do those kinds of things. And what I realized was that Christ was here to tend to the sick, to take care of the homeless, to feed the hungry, that our job is to give love and energy and blessings into this world.
mhm,
Also, in mystical Judaism, there's a concept called the great work, and that's the spiritualization of matter.
mhm,
That our job as divine beings is we have the capacity to turn matter into divinity. We can
mhm,
do that with the earth, we can do that with each other, just simply by us being here together, having this conversation, by me gazing upon the beauty in you that
mhm,
pulls forth your divine essence. We
mhm,
need to be looking around this world, casting the gaze of beauty, looking for the beauty in each other, looking for the beauty in the water, looking for the beauty in the forest, to call that beauty back.
mhm.
Um, so so that's
Yes.
something very simple. We send that love, we send that gratitude,
Mhm,
and then,
yes.
be open to ourselves having our own experience.
So beautiful. Ah, the magic hands. Yes. Okay. So when you began to connect and commune in this way, you started to hear different messages. And one was around singing to sacred mountains. And I remember you sharing this story with me, and I'm laughing because you were laughing as you were sharing. You're like, okay, how in the world is that supposed to happen? But again, this is what I love about it, like the inner listening. And when we learn to attune there, it's not going to come through in the ways in which we are used to communication, right? And it
No.
also may not make any logical sense. Sometimes it might if it fits into your current paradigm. Most of the time it doesn't. And then there's that little space in between, just going with it and just allowing for it to reveal itself over time. Because also, I've noticed that like it can be like a bit of a labyrinth. I have noticed offerings on my path, teachers, teachings that showed up where I'm like, what? That is not how I thought it would show up. It showed up. I asked for help at my altar one day on my knees for something that I was so tired of this particular ongoing conflict with my dad. And I just was praying for help. And I asked, I said, please show me. And then literally within a few days, I was shown a Breathe with Cannabis workshop. And I won't go into the long story because I've shared it here before many times. But it was a teacher that was to show up in that 3 teacher series that mentioned he happened to be a master teacher of the Gene Keys. And something sparked, and it was like, Gene Keys, that's not at all what we were there for. But I allowed that to just kind of pause, stayed with the breath work. And then the next day, I pulled out my Gene Keys book. And it's because of the Gene Keys that I now have a relationship with my father that is far more harmonious than not. So just looking at the ways in which spirit shows up, and it's on us to notice. And this is another moment you and I just really connected because most of us are so busy and so disconnected with all the ways in which we do that we don't notice. But there was a particular moment where I know there's at least 2 where your listening really pivoted and it was like, okay, we're on.
Thank you for that. Yes. And that was a few years later. And just, I just want to acknowledge the power of that story and
Oh,
the trust that it takes to follow our listening when we don't always know, and how beautiful that the Gene Keys led you to connect back with your father. And when we start to look at life as all of it is in service to our awakening, to our growth, it shifts the lens through which we experience life.
mhm.
And So for me, so then again, here we are now, fast forward a little bit in COVID, and everything's shut down. I didn't have any place to sing and nowhere to teach. And I would go outside in the mountains of Topanga and I would chant. I would do my chanting morning practice and I would sing to the mountains. And again, after a little bit of time, I started to realize how much they loved it. Which you seem like, well, how do you know they really loved it? Like I felt like they really loved it. And then I was reminded of that period of time where the messages were really coming through strongly. And then I remembered my love of sacred mountains, and I started to go on this deep dive into researching the geomagnetics of temples and sacred sites and what actually makes a land holy or sacred, and read the work of Freddie Silva, who is a fantastic scholar and just a superhuman being. And so during that time, he was actually teaching an in-person workshop in Sedona and on ley lines and power spots of the earth. So I went to that workshop and I felt this aliveness and this really deep calling to get to know more. And I kept singing to the land. And in my experience, the answers lie within. It's just about creating the space for the answers to come through. So when I would get up in the morning and either sun gaze or I'll sing to the earth or have a chanting practice, that would allow space for those answers to come through. So I start to hear, go and sing to sacred mountains. And I was exactly like, well, okay. It was actually quit your job and go sing to sacred mountains. And I was like, oh, well, how am I going to make money singing to sacred mountains? I'm just going to like haul up in my car and just like, set up shop and start singing to the mountains. So I resisted for many months. And after about 3 months, just everything came to a head. It was like I was still operating out of a lot of self-protection mechanisms because of my sense of responsibility, because I cared for my family and my community, and I wanted to be fiscally responsible. And everything just kind of came to a head and just started falling apart. And I had this moment where I was like, well, I'm doing everything. I'm sacrificing myself in order to make this work for everybody else, and it's not working. What if I try listening to myself? Radical idea. And it all happened in a couple-hour period. And so I quit my job. And right away, I was invited to lead a women's retreat in the Ko'olau Mountains on Oahu, Hawaii. I was invited to lead a private retreat in the Grand Tetons. I spent 3 weeks in the Chiricahua Mountains of eastern Arizona. I spent time in Sedona singing to the mountains. And as I was singing to the mountains, I got downloaded my whole program for what I now teach, the SongKeeper School, which is a program of sacred singing, earth honoring, and teaches us how to build that relationship back with the truth of who we are and restoring the holiness and sacredness to the land. So the land is a living library, temples, sacred sites. Even in Hinduism, they consider mountains master teachers. So when you go and you sing to the mountains, you pay homage. You offer your voice as part of something greater than yourself. There's no agenda. There's just the empowerment of the elementals, the empowerment of the spirit of place. You can't help but be blessed. It's said that the fastest way for your dreams to come true are to help someone else's dreams to come true. So imagine helping the earth have her dreams come true, recognizing that she is this divine sentient being of which we are all a part. And so now I have the tremendous honor of being with others in sacred circle, singing to the land, singing to God, singing love in our hearts, remembering who we are as stewards of this earth, as stewards of each other, and doing my best to bring that and to bring greater love to the world.
Full body divine tingles, and tearing up over here for those who don't catch this on YouTube, where I do put fire and soul. But wow, this is exactly how you riffed when the moment that we met, by the way. I was like, who dis? And it comes through you with it's a ferocity of knowing and clarity and deep reverence for what your mission is. And I've shared with you now on a couple of occasions, like this depth of awareness, this connection to the earth and to all of life and this unity consciousness. This is not hyperbole. It's actually what is calling me, and it's deeper, and it can feel scarier because it's like, ooh, the masses aren't there and they're so checked out. And it's like, and you, Michelle, you were literally just checked out 6 months ago, and I might be again. And I'll look back today and see where else I hadn't deepened into. And that's what I'm really catching on your journey is like, no matter where we are, if there's any resonance here or if there's resistance, you're perfectly on your path, right? And so like you were sharing the evolution of yours, and so as I listen to you and I'm just like so activated, it's kind of like how I felt when I came across your partner's material, but I didn't hear it through him. I heard it through Luke Story's Lifestylist podcast, and I know you met them
Mm.
when Michael and the team were on the show, but it was around self-governance and spiritual sovereignty and all of that stuff. There was an activation, and that was an important part of my journey, and I'm nearly complete on that. But this is the next layer. And I
Mm.
don't even know if what I'm saying actually makes sense, but it's like the way that you speak, what you represent, how you actually live, I know is where I'm being guided because you're on my path. And now you're sharing this with us, and you're actually joining me on my upcoming retreat, which I think is sold out. So this is not, you can always check in with me, but I believe it is. And we're going to be putting this into action, right? And introducing this for others to then to take it home if they feel called and to put it into action into their communities, it's just like, and this is the great web of creation. Yeah, so just want to thank you for all that you shared and what I'm literally picking up as you're transmitting. And it's like your antenna is up and it's so clear. And I'm just like, I'm tuned. And I'm like, yes, yes. And I believe there are more of us that are finding each other that want to stand in this light and then want to radiate this light from an embodied place of we're meeting our shadows. We're aware of how dark it is. We're not bypassing that. We're doing our own work. And yet we also know that there's a reason why we're here on this planet at this time.
Mm. Ah, thank you. And something I so love about our conversations is it's like, yes, and, it's
Yeah,
like, oh
right.
yeah, like, it stimulates, it activates things in our own
Yeah.
awareness. And I think like that is the beauty of human relationship. That's the power of the alchemy of human relationship.
Mhm.
It's not sitting side by side of like, oh, what's your favorite color? Where do you want to go for dinner? It's like recognizing that we have the capacity to inspire, to turn on those channels in each other. And when we gather, they say that we're two or more are gathered, I am there.
Mm.
And actually, when we gather, the energetic field is amplified exponentially by all who are present.
Mm.
So we create a body through our connection and then through our resonance. And it's also said that it takes only a few very high vibrational beings to keep the whole planet going. That
Mm.
it's, so much more powerful than people who are in their negativity or in the fear vibration. It takes so many more of them to create any kind of momentum. So we're in this process of being liberated and, being drawn to self-governance or whatever it is. It's all these pathways recognizing that there's something more. There's
Yes.
something more, and I want to know what it is. And, as you were talking about this transmission, what I've tuned into is that there's this transmission field and that every great master is just like a window to the divine. And, whether it's your tree teacher or whether it's a physical being or whether it's the Christ, they're speaking through to our hearts in a way that we need that form, because we're in physical form, we need that form so that we can understand
Mm.
and that we can have a greater sense of connection. But it's not about the form. The form is just the vehicle that might draw us in. And ultimately, when we process our wounding and our trauma, then we can get to this place where we realize, when am I speaking out of my mind? When am I speaking out of my insistence? Or when am I actually tuned in to the antenna of the universe and allowing that to speak through me? And the last thing I'll say to this point is how Spirit showed it to me is that we have two lineages, several more, but there's this horizontal lineage, which is the meeting of our parents, of our physical body that came to being. So we have these two lineages that come together. We have our physical body, but yet we have this vertical lineage, which is the lineage of our soul. It's who we've come from before this life, the eternal nature of where we're destined to go. And we need to work on healing that horizontal lineage so that we can be a clear vessel for that divinity to shine through into this world. And then I'm not saying anything different than you're saying when we're there. We're all just speaking different parts of the same conversation, the conversation that's being broadcast through the ethers.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I had forgotten about that beautiful teaching that you just shared that Spirit showed you of the vertical and the horizontal. And so many, as we know, are so focused on only the vertical, but yet haven't talked to their mother or have this discord with their father or their, past partner or their ex-boss or their former best friend or, it's this, these are all just mirrors and catalysts, right? Like nothing to shame or blame, but like, just look at that. If you're only focused on the vertical, then just maybe it's time to just get a little more present to the horizontal that will allow more capacity, right? And more presence for the vertical. This has been my journey, at least, of just being demanded to not only look at the current life, but also many lifetimes and or ancestors that have passed. And to not give myself the burden of carrying too much, but to also recognize that I am the one who has the capacity to see it and who is willing to be with it so that, yes, the alchemy can begin. And that's been really even just this past year that's still so new for me, but we're in such quickening times. I'm just going in so deep and so narrow. It feels like if I haven't talked to someone in a week, probably need to have an entire reintroduction. Do you feel that way?
Uh. Yes, on some level. And
Yeah,
then there's this level of timelessness that we get to
totally.
connect on.
Yeah.
And also to recognize that in Kabbalah, they speak about this concept called tikkun, which is a spiritual correction.
Mhm.
And I think I just shared this with you, but it's what we come into this life to heal, to fix, to transform. And it inspires our high heart desires. It inspires those desires to help us chart the course for where that correction is. But there's also something called the collective tikkun, which many of us have chosen to take on a part of that collective tikkun to help all of humanity.
Mm.
So, in this process of awakening, of finding ourselves, of waking down, some of us may have embodied a really strong archetype, a really strong wound in the field
Yeah.
that, we don't want to judge ourselves is really the point.
Right.
To have grace with ourselves and to recognize we don't know, we can't see the whole makeup from this vantage point. And potentially someone has taken on a really big wounding in a family system or, a real strong block, or they're the black sheep of the family. And to have grace with yourself because just a little other illustration of that is, you go to a restaurant and, your friend orders something off the menu and you're like, well, actually, do you have, ostrich with the bark of a Himalayan shaved tree? And they're like, okay, we can do that for you. It's just going to take a minute. So, sometimes when we have this powerful work we're called into life for, or we have some requests that might be part of our soul fulfillment, we don't realize the complexity, the tremendous configuration it's taking from so many different aspects to come together to bring that into fulfillment, and to realize that you or anyone listening, your very existence here is calling together the molecules to form your body, the resources for you to exist, for you to fulfill your dreams. And it's no small feat. Just you being here, holding these dreams and visions in your consciousness, holding the love in your heart, is impacting the totality of the quantum field.
Yeah. Thank you for weaving that in. It's really cool to learn about the cocoons individually and collectively because it's, there's many lives, many masters, many spiritual technologies. And so we get what we get in the ways that we are meant to, because it's very similar to that karmic to dharmic pathway of the gene keys. And that for me, and I think I've said it here, but I want to be clear, like I love the gene keys because it does give me such a beautiful map that resonates so fully based on the I Ching and your birth details. And But it's also not, I'm not so attached to it. I can learn just as much by going out and listening to my matriarch tree in the backyard in moments, right? But to kind of map my life and like the themes that seem to, recur, I'm like, this is definitely part of that. And so it just gives me peace of mind almost as if like, yep, that's the curriculum in this life. And it's for the highest and best for all. It's for the greater good. Yeah. Speaking of the greater good, so want to wind into an offering that you have just because it's so beautiful and it's so special and it's your debut with the Shift Network. But before that, like, I don't know if I've ever asked you this, like, why do people feel called to come to the song keeping school that you've been running now for a few years, to enroll in your programs, to come to your retreats, to connect in that way? What are some of the things that you hear people say of like, this is why I'm here? Even if they, for example, who could be like some of our people tuning in today, I don't know about that. That seems odd, maybe interesting, not sure, but let's just allowing for the curiosities.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, often, just right up front, it's people who want access to their voice,
Mm.
people who have felt that their voice has been blocked, their voice has been shut down, their self expression has been limited, who feel disconnected. They know that they're here for a higher purpose, but they haven't been able to access it. And, for those who are listening now, it's usually I'll say something, I'll write something, and people are like, I don't know why, but I feel like what you're saying is right, and it's like it's the right thing for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the threshold. Is actually, I have also a lot of people who they just love the earth.
Mm.
um, People who have been park rangers,
Mm.
ecologists,
Mm.
scientists, and they've studied all these principles and then started to have their awakening and realized that there's this unseen dimension to this planet of ours.
Mm.
So I so love that there's spiritual seekers, there's people who just want to find voice, they want to realize that they matter. Don't we all need to know that we matter, that our voice makes a difference in this world? And, the way that Western world is set up, it's like your value is determined by how much money you have, what is your job like, how much are you contributing to the health of society, are you a good citizen? And yet there's this part in us that knows that there's more than that. And
Mhm.
so once we start putting our voice into service to something greater than ourselves, once
Mhm.
we start singing for the blessing of the land, it unblocks those blocks,
Mhm.
it heals those wounds, it shows us those places where we felt shut down in the past, and it heals them.
Mm.
It's like once we start using our voice and contributing to the greater good, it's like this vacuum opens up this channel that just sucks life force energy into us. We're not separate and apart from the system.
Mhm.
Spirit showed me that we have these deficits in society. We have economic deficits, political deficits, emotional, psychological, because we've learned over the last couple of years how to create an extractive society.
Yes.
Back years ago, the ancients knew you made offerings before you took anything from the land. You
Mm.
made offerings before you mined anything. You made offerings before you harvested from the fields.
Mm.
And the last 200 years, all we've done is we've taken without offering, without our connection to the spirit world. And what that has created is a great deficit in the unseen. So as
Mm.
soon as we contribute our voices to feed back into that void, it's instantly amplified exponentially. We reconnect with the heart of the
Mm.
heart of the mother who's always been there. In the major world religions, it's a patriarchal model of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But yet, even Jesus the Christ in the Essene Gospel of Peace talks about honor your earthly mother,
Mm.
honor your heavenly father, honor your earthly mother, for it's her angels that tend to your digestion, your circulatory system, your eyes, your heart. We really need to recognize that our body temple is sacred, that the earth is sacred, in addition to God our Father is sacred.
Mm. Thank you for that. So beautiful. I could listen to you forever, Rhea. It's, yeah, no, because there's a remembrance that's being activated in me, and so that's just what I'm also so clear on. And I keep remembering this song by Sam Garrett called "Mama." Do you know it?
I'm
Oh,
not sure.
I've
I
got
know
to share
Sam
it with
Garrett,
you.
but I don't know.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I've got to share it with you. I'm not going to sing it, which you're going to sing for us in a moment, but thank you for that. Yeah. So an offering could be a song, a prayer, a physical object, even just, yeah, a blessing, just words. That's what's so beautiful about what you're sharing here is just to begin to connect in that way. And it's so interesting. I remember being on a medicine journey maybe a year and a half ago, and I was outside. I felt called to be under the stars, and it was in this big, beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills with a roaring fireplace. And it was mid-November. It was a chilly night, and but yet everything was asking me to go outside. And there was like one other person outside out of 25 people ish, and to walk off like the porch area, it would meant I'd have to step onto the grass. And I remember before I stepped, there was this whole pause, and it was like I was meant to ask
Mm.
for the blessing to walk on the grass, to walk on the earth. And I'm just remembering that right now. And it was like, oh, wait. And it was just this subtle little thing. And for sure it was a yes, but it was also just this sacred reciprocity of awareness. It was so almost imperceptible in terms of its significance. But right now I'm remembering that. And then there was this big, beautiful, I don't remember what kind of a tree. It was massive, and I wanted to lay on one of its. It was like a hammock. It was such a big arm, and I asked for permission, and it seemed to be grateful that I'd asked for permission, and then I just laid in it, and there I was, like laying in a tree under the stars for the next hour. So just these moments that I know that you get people to without any medicine. And that's the whole point, is that sometimes the medicine is the bridge to some of those realities that then we'll often find we no longer need any medicine at all because the medicine is us. The medicine is earth. We are the medicine. But so I
Mm.
want to talk about your beautiful new offering for anyone who may feel called to want to learn how to sing in the journey of the Songkeeper that you've collaborated with the Shift Network, which congratulations, that's a pretty big deal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really exciting.
Hmm.
And we're going to take a 7-week journey into deepening our connection with our voice as this sacred conduit of the divine, building relationship with the earth, restoring our connection. We actually have a ceremony, a ritual of reconnecting with our Mother Earth. And we'll learn songs to sing to the water. We'll sing to bridge heaven and earth. We'll do an ancestral healing ceremony. We'll learn about the chakras and the voice and learn how to embody the sacred temple that we are in order for that power of the word to speak heaven and earth, to speak heaven onto earth. And then the course culminates with the class called the Army of Singers. There's actually a story in the Bible of a king who sent an army of singers ahead of the army to win the battle before it even started. And so I had a dream of the commander of the army of singers, and I saw just this heavenly chorus singing heaven to onto earth. And just like we talked about, this amplification of our energy based on all the number of those present. So we're creating a unified field to really anchor in these frequencies. And the other special thing that is part of this course is there's a new song that I've written called Hollow Bone. And first it was hollow bone. There's this concept in native cosmology, make me a hollow bone or make me a hollow reed so that spirit can move through me. So I had written hollow bone, but I misspelled it somewhere, hallow. And hallow means to sanctify, to make holy. And so it's a song invocation for make me this hollow bone for spirit to sing through me and restore us all to unity. And so I've recorded this song, and for people in the course, if they'd like, they get to sing on the song with me.
Oh,
So there's instructions. They get to have their voice added to the choir. We'll have the debut on the last class of this choir of heavenly singers The purpose being to anchor heaven on earth, to restore that sense of purpose, to put us back into this recognition that we are part of something greater than ourselves and that we came here for a reason. Each and
Mm.
every person listening came here for a reason. You are needed, you are wanted, you are beloved of the universe. And our voice isn't just our speaking voice, it's our voice, our self-expression in this world. It's your purpose.
Yes.
So a byproduct of this work is healing your voice, improving your singing voice, and also opening the doors, removing stagnation and blockages for your own greater purpose and self-expression to be brought into the world.
Wow, what an incredible invitation. Is this live? The course is
Yes,
taught live and then it'll
yes,
be digital thereafter?
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so people, oh, wow. And when does this start?
October 22nd.
Okay, so this will get released on October 21st. So if anyone's interested, you got to jump right in to be a part of this particular live journey. And then if you're listening after, then obviously just come on in and be a part of the experience.
And it's open enrollment, so people can enroll anytime during the course.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Got it. Oh, so good. So we'll leave information and how to, explore that and see if it calls in the show notes. I have so enjoyed this conversation. I knew that I would. And what's really cool is that so much of this ended up being a lot like what our conversations are like. And that was my highest vision, is that get to know you a little bit more, but also be in that beautiful flow that we find ourselves in. So I want to thank you for bringing your full heart and song. So is there a blessing that you would like to sing us out with? And is there anything else before that that you wish you'd been asked or that you feel called to share?
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for your beautiful heart and for your listening.
Mm.
It's we don't take action in this world alone. It's said that the highest expression of consciousness is the witness consciousness. And so your witnessing me, your listening to me pulls out my highest and best.
Mm.
It's such a gift we have that we give when we listen to one another.
Mm.
So thank you for listening to me, and may that be something that people take forward with them. That's a gift that we can give anyone at any moment, is the deep listening.
That is so beautiful. What did you just say? Witnessing is the higher consciousness it brings out. That was so
So,
lovely.
well, good thing we can listen back to this.
I know, I was literally
Um,
thinking that. I was like, Michelle, you can just wait till this comes out and listen. But I was like, but wait, if I'm asking, then others are too.
So there's something called witness consciousness,
Hmm.
and that's a aspect of our spiritual evolution where it's not like I want this and I'm separate from the action. It's where we're able just to take a step back and witness. It's kind of the neutral observer who can just watch. That's like you, and even said in the beginning to the listeners, but you also said the watchers. It's like this awareness that we're able to have the capacity to expand our consciousness to witness. And inside the witness, there's no push pull. There's
Hmm.
no wanting, there's no longing, there's no dissatisfaction. They say the purpose of suffering is for enlightenment. That
Mm.
finally we somehow disconnect ourselves from this story, this fight, this battle, and come into that place of witnessing where we can again become one with everything.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, I knew there was more. So yes, you are welcome, most welcome. And if there's anything else that you feel called to share, by all means,
Well, I would love to sing this song.
I would love that.
And you mentioned self-governance and my beloved Michael and Sacred Honor Educational Fellowship. And there's something as part of their trifecta pathway, which is the foundational piece is this declaration of knowingness,
Mm.
this awareness that we have to know who we are and who are we. We are these divine beings.
Mm.
And reading through that, and I was also in the process of putting together one of my class modules on temples and sacred sites and restoring the human body temple so that we have the power of the word to speak reality into creation. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I need a song about this. So the
Mm,
song speaks to that recognition of the holiness within us. The
mm,
places where we hold judgment, where we hold shame, we don't have access to
mm,
those places
mm.
in ourselves or in our world. So this is using our voice to name who we are, who, the totality of our beingness, also who the earth is in relation to us. So it's
Mm.
a big reclaiming of those places of shame, those places of victimhood, and just recognizing the beauty of who we are in our life.
Beautiful. And what I also want to say is that this is brand new. It has not been released. We're getting a sneak peek. And I'll also link, by the way, your Spotify and some YouTube videos. And yeah, so this is really special. But oh my gosh, what was the name of this song?
My body is a church.
Mm, yes. Okay, ready when you are.
My
What is
little
the name of
Peruvian.
this musical instrument?
This is a charango. This is a
Hmm.
little bit of an unorthodox one. It has a electrical pickup,
Hmm.
and it comes from the Andes Mountains in Peru.
Lovely.
Okay.
Hmm.
Can you hear the instrument okay? Okay. My body is a church, my heart the living altar. The forest is my temple, the mountains are my oracle. My body is a gift, adorned with sacred pathways, like the trails that lead to fertile fields and flowing waterways. My body is a church, holy and miraculous, as is the world around me. The waters are my sacrament, the ground beneath my feet is as hallowed as it gets. All creation singing praises to life immaculate. Beautiful, oh beautiful, this blessed life I call my own. Beautiful, beautiful, this holy ground I stand upon. My body is a church, the place I go to worship. The forest is my temple, my heart is how I connect. On my head a starry crown, my feet upon the kingdom, my left hand filled with mercy, my right hand wields the discipline. My body is a church, my soul ordained by the Most High, in service to the intelligence of the great architect of life. Oh, love pours through the fabric of all of space and time, and we hold the magic that makes the world dear. Beautiful, beautiful, this blessed life I call my own. Beautiful, beautiful, this holy ground I stand upon. Beautiful, beautiful, I am, I am. Beautiful, beautiful, I am that I am.
glad I am. Thank you. Mm. It gets to
Hmm.
last.
It
Gets
gets
to
to last.
last.
It gets to last. And then we meet each other again
Yeah.
and we remind each other of that.
Yep.
We are these beautifully placed miracles for each other. And thank you for being that for me, Michelle.
Oh, thank you for being that for me. Thank you for coming on Fire and Soul. What a blessing.